Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I'm your host. Today's guest is Dwayne Myers, owner of Dynamic Automotive. Dwayne is someone who's been very intentional about how technicians are developed inside his shops, not just hiring people and hoping it works out, but building systems around training, growth, and long-term careers. In an industry that spends a lot of time talking about the technician shortage, Dwayne has focused on what happens after a tech walks through the door, how you invest in them, how you help them improve, and how you create an environment where people actually want to stay and grow. Today, we're going to talk about how he approaches technician development, what's worked, what hasn't, and some of the lessons he's learned along the way. Dwayne, welcome to the show. How are you?
Jay, thanks for having me. I'm great. I'm great. It's an honor to be here with you today.
What worries me about this podcast is that every conversation I've ever had with you, I think we could go on for days with. And so we've got a short period of time to talk today. And I think the reason why we've just always hit it off, and I always appreciated your insights on everything shop related, right? And just kind of at times, I think you always have good life advice as a whole, but then you're running a pretty special operation. And so for me, selfishly, I'm able to take so much from our conversations, and I've learned so much from you over the years. And I just, to have you on the podcast is a privilege. I'm really, really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that none of us know everything, and those conversations, you don't know what you don't know. When you have them, what comes out of it, it sometimes it's gospel and that are great things, and other times it's just ideas. And when we chat, I mean, you're doing with WrenchWay and everything, you're doing so much to help our future, and really, everything that not everything we do, but a lot of what we do is just about offering opportunities for people, and it's as simple as that, and figuring out what people want.
Well, let's start, and thank you for that. I want to start with kind of the layout of your shops. How many shops do you have? Explain Dynamic Automotive to us in a way that the person that doesn't know you, who apparently would be living under a rock, because I think everybody knows Dwayne, but explain Dynamic Automotive to us.
Dynamic Automotive has been in business almost 32 years. Currently 7 locations. I have 2 business partners, and I was not a founding father. I came in 2 years in. I knew Lee and Jose. They both worked at the dealership, and I was in the military, working on tanks, went to heavy duty, was working on that, and at night going to automotive classes in Baltimore, about an hour away, to learn automotive. And my electronics teacher was Jose's boss at Capital Cadillac, and he connected us. And when I got done going to school, I went part-time. So I started as a part-time tech, went full-time when we went to store number 2, and then moved up into leadership when we built store 3, which is the one I'm actually sitting in today, which has the quick lube. Used to have a car wash. Now it's ADAS calibration, and then the repair shop. Then bought into the company. They actually did something that's very rare, is they opened their doors and allowed me to buy in, which was probably a really strong thing in my belief. It helped set my beliefs in giving people chances and actually giving them opportunities to grow. And they helped me grow, and then eventually became CEO of the company. There's still, we're still 3 partners. Each of us, as life has progressed, they're at a little bit different stages. Still working in the business, still owners, want to be owners, remain owners. They enjoy it too much, Although it's challenging, there's a lot of fun there. But not constantly. We're strategic about our growth, which we can definitely talk more about. But we're growing, and one of the big drivers is giving our team opportunities.
How, like, when you were in that spot and you're looking at becoming involved from an owner standpoint, was that a difficult decision for you, or was that one where you're like, this makes all the sense in the world, I'm just going to do it? I know early on in your career, financially, that can be a big impact, right? And trying to get together the funds to be able to do something like that, or like, just walk me through your thought process there, because I have to imagine there was a lot on your shoulders at that point.
Yeah. We were, at the time when I originally bought in was around 2007-8, which was not a good time economically. Uh,
No.
I borrowed the money. I literally went and got a big loan and borrowed the money to do it. I took advantage. You ask Lee or Jose, they'll tell you I was a good negotiator. But Dynamic wasn't doing well then. We had opened this Urbana store. We built it from the ground up, uh, and it was a huge store, so almost 13,000 square feet, and we went from two little stores to this, and we were hemorrhaging money, and me buying in did help. It wasn't the savior by any means, but what caused me to want to do that? Complete risk, because I'm already looking at bad financials, uh, risk in the economy, and I'm like, why buy in now? Well, I saw the opportunity. I liked what I was doing, and I knew, and I told them when I came full time, I was either going to open my own business or I was going to do something with them. And I don't think they took me serious enough at the time until I was persistent about it, and they saw that I kept reinvesting my own efforts to learn. So I didn't just stay as a technician. I started to understand financials. I started understanding the leadership side of things. I started understanding dealing with banks and dealing with problems and customers. Uh, and it's what I use to this day is when I have someone tell me they want to be a leader in the company, I look and see what classes they pick when they go to a Vision or they go to Apex or they go to ASTA or whatever they do. If they pick all technical stuff, they're still in the technical world. They start getting in some leadership stuff, some sales training, something different. I'm like, all right, their mind is ready to be expanded.
Mm. I did you do any studying off hours back when you were coming up? And I asked this because I want young technicians to listen to this piece, or people that are in our industry that have that desire to move up.
You know, you have your day job, which you learn at, but really is the nighttime was for me. The daytime was for the company. The nighttime was to help me. And I've been a constant learner my entire life. I've always went to school. I've always learned. I always try to be better because I just feel this industry and just in general will leave you behind if you don't do that. Um, so I did that first technically, and then to grow leadership wise and all, I would go to take classes at night, not just automotive repair, but I would go take an Excel class, and sometimes they were during the day, and the company would pay for it and pay me to go. A lot of times they were at night or on the weekends, and I would invest in that because it made me better. It's like buying that one extra tool in your toolbox. That's what it was. It was another tool in my toolbox, and I would use my time to do that because it was for me. And I always tell people, training is for you. No one can take it from you. If you leave today, you take all that knowledge with you. None of it stays on the bookshelf. So training to me is for the individual. Whenever it was available, I did it.
I think that's a common theme I've seen amongst a lot of the folks in our industry that came up as technicians and really evolved to that next step, was that they weren't afraid to dive into things. Or when I say that, they weren't afraid to take that class. They weren't afraid to go to Vision and take a leadership class rather than all technical classes. They were reading in their off time or listening to podcasts. Maybe when we were growing up, the podcast piece wasn't there, but now you see that, I think, with some high achievers, that they're looking for ways to grow. They're looking for ways to make themselves better and expand their skill set. I think as the years have gone by, there's a clear delineation between, or difference between, the technical skills and the leadership skills and the management skills that are required from somebody that takes that step. And we've all seen technicians that came out of the shop that were great technicians and failed once they got into the office. We've seen some that have done a phenomenal job of making that transition, but I think those are the ones that have been intentional in learning something outside of technical skill, knowing that it's a different job. That's not the same responsibility. That isn't the same requirement in terms of it's more than just you. You're managing a team now. There's so many things that go into that you didn't have to deal with when you were in the bay.
Yeah, working on cars is hard, and it's only getting harder. And I challenge people that aspire to move into leadership. And leadership's the word I'll constantly use. Even our location leads, they are leaders. They no managers. We have no managers here at all. Don't want them. I don't even like the word. I've forbidden it from any of our paperwork. It's a mindset. But I tell them, as I said, cars are hard. People are messy, and they are, because it's not just the emotions. It's just where they're at generationally. Things are different. And as a leader, you have to figure out how you connect to an individual to be able to inspire them, and then help them achieve the goals and dreams that they have. Because it's interesting, and I think it's part of the joy of leadership, is figuring that out, because it's always changing. As soon as you think you have it, something else comes along. That's for sure.
Isn't that true? Have you seen growth in yourself in terms of being able to lead a young person as they're coming in? I know something that I hear commonly, as I'm sure you do, is that this next generation, they blah, 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 they're not hard workers. They're not, they're not this, they're not that. Have you been able to kind of morph into somebody that's adaptable to all generations, or you walk me through that piece?
That's a hit or miss target there. I want to say more so than before. But every generation is different. You have to learn how to connect with them, and it's not, it can't be one conversation. It's got, and usually it's all not through me now. Now I train our other leaders how to have those one-on-ones, and how to build that bridge with them of confidence, and they find out when you're actually there to help them grow, whatever that looks like. They open up and are more giving. But people are motivated differently. There are certain generations that wanted to save the world. The current generation of our newest team members, they want to make a difference, and not saving the world. They want to do stuff. They want to do things. They want to learn and grow. They remind me a lot more of Gen X. But each one is different. But once you find out what is it that motivates them, then try to help them achieve that. I can't connect every time. You try, because sometimes I'm not the perfect person. Sometimes it's, Sarah or Paul or Todd that's on my team that can make that better connection. And I'm not sure why, but just know that you're not always the one that'll do that. But keep trying. And those things will mature into a relationship that you can help.
I think the part that you had talked about there that I would pull out of that is the need for consistent communication, the need for consistent leadership. I look at it in when I talk to a lot of shop leaders, in that I try to make clear that it's your job to communicate. A lot of leaders, I think, get frustrated when they're struggling with communication with their staff. And sometimes it comes down to, like you said, different personalities maybe not aligning, or maybe aligning better. But then taking accountability as a leader to say, okay, if they're not hearing my message, maybe I'm communicating it incorrectly. Maybe I'm not even the right person to be communicating it. I think I give you a lot of credit for understanding that piece, and then being able to kind of meet these folks where they're at.
I think one of the most important, two things I talk to our leaders a lot about. There's a lot of things they say I talk a lot. There's a lot of things I talk about, but one of them is listening. And really it's the why behind everything. No one goes to work wanting to suck. I've said that to you before. Is you have a team member's been with you a while, and all of a sudden they start showing up late. Something's going on. It's our job to figure out why, not just react, but actually help. What's going on, and how can we resolve that? Because you know what, we actually can resolve it more often than not, and it stops that turn. Well, they're gone. I got somebody new. That gets that tenure going, which improves the culture over time. It really is you gotta you have to listen to them, and then have patience. And they say, well, Dwayne, you have a lot of patience. I said, I've learned to be more patient. I don't have a lot. Be honest with you, my patience is short. I just have learned by using that tool, it pays off. So it can be difficult, but you sit there and you wait, listen, learn, and then advise. And really mentoring is what's taught me that. Leadership's one lane, mentoring is another. And then you can put friend. That's a whole other different one too. But mentoring taught you, you patience is important. You have to let them be them, so then you can help them.
That kind of really nicely transitions into our topic of conversation for today, which is developing that next generation of technicians. And I think as we go through the life cycle of a technician, it'll be fun to go through and talk about everything you're doing on in your apprenticeship programs, and then kind of all the way through. I'd like to kind of take the conversation to where we walk through all the way to an experienced technician and saying, okay, like how do we continue to grow these folks and talk through the career pathing side. But let's start by talking about the work that you're doing with young people to get them into your shop, to get them trained up. And the reason I say that's a good transition is because that part does take patience. And I think that's something a lot of our industry lacks, right? And myself included. It is really, really hard to be patient with a young person. But I look to other industries, and my co-founder at WrenchWay started off as a CPA. He said, I went to school for 6 years, and then they still started me off at entry level auditing, right? And here we are. We'll send a kid to school for a year or two, throw them to the wolves, and be disappointed in 3 months when they're not producing, right? So when we talk through that patient side, I do want to talk through kind of that full life cycle, and maybe give you the stage to first off talk about your apprenticeship program and the development of young people, and then we'll kind of tie back into that the patience piece.
Yeah, the something we've always done. Lee and Jose were great examples of this. Is we've always invested in our local school system. From day one, we actually helped them start an automotive program. They had a failing diesel program that was going away, and we helped along with some other local some dealerships, local independents, helped to actually shore up and create an automotive program, and we've been on their advisory board ever since. Even though we're not looking for, uh, even when we're not looking for help, we still support the program. For it to be there when we need it, we have to support it when we don't. So it's important, and that's really been key, because more than half of our technicians have come from our local school systems, and they have been grown from absolutely entry level up to you can say our C-level suite now, just as they've moved up over time. But yeah, to start, we realized back in, I think after 2010, we really saw a decline in interest in our industry, and not just from the student, but really the parents. The big shift. I mean, there was a whole generation that really went to college that didn't join the trades, and we all know that. But how do we counter it? Because we countered it with trying to create our own apprenticeship program, and we didn't do a really good job. We thought we did, but an apprenticeship is never ran when you're slow, or it's a rainy day. You run it. What we didn't know is you have to do it consistently, and with a program, and you have to take it seriously, and it takes precedent no matter what. If the program's running, the program happens. And they're like, well, they can't leave now to go to school because we're working on cars. No, they're leaving. We find another way to get the cars done. You make that a priority, and that's what started making our program really relevant, and not just to the students, but also uh, to the parents. Of course, we were paying for their education. They're going to college. Well, we have youth, which is high school, and then afterwards, which is our registered program, which is college. But our foster team, our farm team, if you think of baseball, is our youth apprenticeship program, which is the high school. We bring a lot of young talent. Once we created the programs, we've had a waiting line for 10 years now. People, we thankfully, we don't have to look hard for young talent. It finds us. But we still support the schools. We still go. We're still at every mock interview, career nights, apprenticeship evenings. Even though we're not looking, we still there. I'm like, it's like branding. I say, you're talking to a young individual that you may not have room to hire, but you're helping them get better at their interview skills. Right? But in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 10 years from now, they're going to remember you, and you might need them. and they come in and they say, I interviewed with you and you helped me. And that chance of that connection is just a lot higher and a lot better chance for it to be successful. So, you know, having these programs where we had the youth, which really helped people try our industry, safe place to see if I liked it, didn't like it, safe place for us to say, you're a good Dynamic Automotive team member. What is it that they need? Really, it's, do they show up on time? Do they have off to learn? Do they want to grow and expand? Are they a good team player? Which all that leads into culture now. And if you are those things and you have a little bit of ability, we can teach skill. You just have to have a little bit. If you have that, right mindset, we now take those and put into our registered program, which definitely is a bigger investment for us and them. And that's a 3-year program, which has created a lot of our technicians. And I tell you, easily 5 years ahead in their career when they're done with that. So we have a great pipeline. Right now, I think we have 5 registered and about 3 youth apprentices. We were up to 7. We had 2 more graduate, which are doing a phenomenal job. A lot of our technicians, the majority of them have run through the program. They're now mentors, but the pipeline's still going. We're adding more and more people because we're growing. We're adding more stores. We're growing organically. A lot of the stores that we look at, they don't have team members. They're either down to the owner, people are retiring, they don't know what to do. We can offer succession because we have a talent pipeline, and it's made a huge difference. But what apprenticeship taught us is that if a 3-year structured program worked so well, which was previously done with a youth program that was 1 to 2 years, it really was just more, do I like this, don't I, into a structured program. Why not continue that? And that's what taught us about career paths is if it worked so well in that 3 years with the hardest demographics you can have for retention, that 18 to 25-year-old, I mean, our retention ratio is really good in that over a 10-year period, we're at 71%. We're in the high 90s every year in retention of 18 to 25-year-olds.
Wow.
And that's because we've helped them with their career. They're part of our culture. They understand we've been clear on our vision, where we're heading. We have opportunities for them. They're making a good living. Sometimes, I just had one that was with us for 10 years that had an opportunity 3 hours away with the family to help run a family store, which, you align with this pretty good, Jay. And I wished him well. And we still connect. I reached out to him the other day. He's doing well. That's a success story. Even though he now has moved on from Dynamic, that was 10 years of his life that he spent and made great inroads and did a lot of great things with us. And I think we made an impact on him. And I look at that as a success. But there's a lot of other ones that stay with us even longer and all. But it just grows. It started the whole culture thing of learning at that point at the young entry level. But then now we stack it all the way up to hopefully an entire career to where when you retire, it's here too.
I have so many things to pull out of what you just said there. The first being, I think where your viewpoint on this is different than a lot of people is that consistency in being involved in the school. And because of that, you're driving that interest because there's awareness, right? If you're involved with the school and you are helping at Skills USA, or you're helping with something that gets you into the school, you have a better relationship with the instructors. I know, shout out to Tracy Hicks, who does phenomenal work out there, right? And like it takes the instructor as well, but you've been very intentional about that relationship. And every time I've heard you talk with Tracy or anybody else, when we talk through our ASE conversations, like, you have a genuine interest and care for that school in a way that I think a lot of people miss. And something I often talk about is the need for our industry to focus on the program as much as the one individual you're going to get out of that program. Because when you do that, you are going to drive more interest in what you're doing from young people. And with that, you can be a little more selective on who you bring into your program. That's why I'm such a big fan of job shadowing, because you get somebody in the doors, you kind of get your hands on them, so to say like, is this something that's going to be a fit for you? If it is, maybe we'll try out an apprenticeship with you. But I think so often people in our industry are just get so excited when somebody's interested in doing this for a living that we'll jump at the first person, even as a young person, to bring them in. And you put so much time and effort and money into a young person that I think we really underrate how long that process takes. And I think we lack intentionality at that early stage of bringing somebody in an effort just to get bodies in, right? And so your viewpoint on consistently supporting the school, I think, has set you up so well to make the rest of this work that I do think a lot of our industry just flat out misses on.
Well, if you want to, and it doesn't, not just the automotive program. I mean, me and Jose are both on CTE, which is the local community college, and the entire CTC program, which I believe they have 23 programs. I mean,
Wow.
anything from Homeland Security, IT. I mean, let's face it. I mean, pretty soon, automotive is going to be more IT than it is mechanical. You know, uh, why not pull some of that talent over as well? But we support the entire school system, not just all the trades, but that the entire all of it, because that is our future, not just our future workforce, our future team. But that branding, people get to know, your community gets to know you as a partner of the school, of the community. You're there to help, and it's what a better way. The best way for a small business to be successful is invest in the community they serve. I believe that to my core, and it's proven itself. The community will respond in kind when it's ready. You do it without expectations, but we've never ever been let down. And it's the same when you invest in the school. The students know it. The students know that you helped, and they know. Thankfully, we have a really good pack. We have a really good advisory committee. We have a broad range of independent shops, of manufacturers, dealerships, um, some heavy duty, even the military. They're even involved in it, and so the resources and all and what's available to the students is just so much better. And the students, not all of them get it, but a lot of them do, and that hangs around. I tell you, if it's no different paying for marketing and branding. You are branding your business in the community, and what better way to be successful than helping out the next generation?
I've been fortunate enough to witness some of Tracy's advisory committee meetings, and the point you made about having that diverse group of an advisory committee is so important, because what I felt when I've been able to sit in on some of those is that it does feel like the swords are put down, right? We're not competitors going in here. We are working for the betterment of this school. And when you get an advisory committee to that level, and I again give Tracy a lot of credit for this, to where you can get people that might be fighting for customers in the same room, and even fighting for talent, right? Like we've seen that more and more over the years. The more you can get them in the room together fighting for the betterment of that school, the betterment of the industry, I think the more effective it is for everybody. But if you come in, and I've been on the opposite side of that as well, where you walk into an advisory committee meeting where everybody's guarded, nobody's giving actual honest feedback, and really, almost like I've been in some of them where the shops are just so proud that they don't want to admit any faults, or they don't want to, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's very frustrating, because you look at it and you're like, I know your shop operation pretty well, and I know there are some things that you could improve. And that's both dealers, that's independents, that's fleets, that's anybody. Why would you not have the best interest of the school in mind when you're coming into this? And if you're, I don't want to say insecure, but at some level it is insecurity, where you don't want to have honest conversations with everybody in the room. I think that is really to the detriment of the program, and it hurts those instructors too, because then, if especially in the community colleges, the tech schools, they could have their dean in that meeting, and the dean needs to hear some of this stuff. And like, there's so much value to everything you said there about putting the swords down and having good, honest conversations.
For I think especially for our culture, and really it's a culture of learning, and it's a learning, at all levels. It's a culture of learning, and I tell, I have shops, ask me about our apprenticeship program, and of course I share everything we have. I want everyone to be successful in this. And I tell them one of the things that culture of learning is really important, because you can have all the nuts and bolts of the program, but you have to be willing to let people fail. And you help them fail forward to where they're learning. If you don't give people permission to fail, to make a mistake, to break apart, how will they ever learn, and how will they ever challenge themselves? Because if you tell me you've never broken anything or made a mistake, you're not trying too hard. I've broke a lot. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I have no problem owning them, because if I own them and you learn from my mistake, we both win. That's a bigger win. But yeah, it's important. And Tracy, and our local advisory board is actually really good. We work well together. I mean, a lot of them are friends. And no matter where they're at, and we're not competing against each other. We're trying to help each other. And that's the same thing. I think ASC and the Education Foundation has been really good, is when we go to those meetings, it's about helping the industry. And we've become friends, and we realize we're not competitors. And really, we need each other. And when we work together, it's amazing the things that we accomplish.
Oh, and that, you couldn't be more spot on there. Like, it's going to take the collective to kind of right this ship. And I think the more you can do this, the less you'll be fighting for talent. Quite frankly, I think that the more that we're working together, it's going to be acting less out of desperation and more out of like, okay, like my system, my farm league, as you mentioned, like I'd love the baseball analogy, is I can run this as good as anybody, right? So I don't know, all of that just to say I love that piece of it.
Every shop, dealership, and business in our industry depends on great technicians. Between the technician shortage, disconnected school relationships, and lack of trustworthy workforce data, it makes it difficult for shops to plan, hire, and grow. That's where ASE Connects comes in. Created in partnership with WrenchWay, ASE Connects is a membership designed specifically for shops like yours to help you build a stronger technician pipeline by connecting with schools, empowering you with tools and data to improve your recruiting, retention, and performance. With ASE Connects, you can connect with local schools through School Assist, start building relationships, and support the programs that educate our future technicians. You can also access verified data on technician pay, benefits, and labor rates through the Industry Data Exchange, so you know how your shop compares locally and nationally. Lastly, you can get proven strategies for leadership, employee development, and shop management through members-only guides, templates, and events. Join ASE Connects to strengthen your workforce and build a stronger, smarter shop. Learn more at wrenchway.com/solutions/shops or follow the link in the show notes.
Now, when you, like kind of rolling back the clock here a little bit, when you had first really taken the apprenticeship piece, both the youth and the true apprenticeship seriously, did you fight any internal resistance with your group, or was that mindset already there with kind of that growth? Because I kind of, as I'm asking that question, think back to how often we have maybe that more experienced technician in the shop that is resistant to change, and now all of a sudden you're going to push this on me. Did you fight any of that resistance when you started this off?
There was resistance, but that we'll get to that part, because it was actually external. Thankfully, we had such a culture of learning already that people were up for it. But I actually included our team, because we were kind of working from scratch here of what all involved. I mean, the state of Maryland had it was very open. I mean, you could put so much in there to personalize it. And I got the team to help. And I asked everything from potential apprentices to potential mentors, leaders in the company, even outside. Asking, what is it that we want in here? What makes it successful? What are the challenges? Thankfully, because of that, we got a lot of buy-in. But I will tell you, to me, the most important part of an apprenticeship program is selecting the right mentor. That is key. That will ruin the program quicker than anything. If you pick someone, I always tell them, I said, usually your highest performer is not the best mentor. We need those. We need the people that are focused on just getting stuff done, without a doubt. The person that is efficient, but likes to talk a little more, likes to explain a little more, has a little more patience. That usually is a better mentor. Not that anyone cannot be. Select it, challenge them, compensate them for their time, effort, knowledge, energy. And if you pick properly, your success will be a lot higher. It's a lot less, because if someone's a bother, I don't have time for you, you don't have the patience, it's hard to transfer knowledge when they don't feel like that it's wanted, or I'm bothering you. That's not it. You're supposed to go to them when you need help or advice, and not feel like you're bothering them. Of course, there are limits to everything, but yeah, we found picking the right mentor, and that's an area where we're constantly trying to be better at, is mentor training. ASC's done some mentor training. There's mentor training out there, but I think that's key. Right now, I'm doing a lot of it myself, and at some point, we'll need more of an official program. But a lot of it's just picking the right people, and if you do that, you're more likely to be successful.
Anything stand out to you about good mentors?
A good mentor likes to share, and they also are willing to let people try things. I think that's another thing. One place we went off the rails was we ran an apprentice through the program. They were in the youth program, then they were the registered 5 years right there. Been with us 5 years. They graduated our apprenticeship program. Now, this was early on. The location lead, the shop foreman, was afraid to challenge them. They were already doing a lot of things, but now your Ford Explorer came in needing timing chains. And in my mind, that apprentice does 95% of the work, and the mentor is there to pull the pins on the grenades. But they weren't allowing it. A head, doing a cam, or a head on a Chrysler. Nope, can't touch that. And I'm like, why not? They can do 95% of it, or 90, or wherever their skill level's at in their career, their pathway. We lost a great young talent because we didn't challenge them anymore. They were challenged all the way through the program, and we stopped. And that's because now this is one of the best technicians I know, and he's on his way. He's actually now leading a location. But what he had to learn was taking chances on people and letting them try things. I said, now we can control some of that and a lot of it, but there's still some risk there. But let's face it, we got to take a chance on people. If we don't take chance, how will they ever grow, and why will they stay with us?
I think I've seen that same thing with business leaders, right? Where people are afraid to delegate or afraid to let somebody try something. And in that scenario that you just said, the 95.5% is such a good picture in people's heads, because if you're one of those technicians that's listening to this and you're struggling with this and you want to become a good mentor, I do think taking a step back and allowing somebody to do the work and helping them along is such an impactful thing. But it takes some hey, my name's going to be on this repair. I do not want this thing coming back. And it just letting go of that a little bit, because so many of our great technicians in our industry have so much pride in the work that they do. And to kind of let that go, I think when you do let it go, what I've experienced is that that mentor technician has an extreme amount of pride, not just in that job, then they have an extreme amount of pride in that young person that they're trying to grow up. Right. And that mentorship is huge.
Well, mentorship is the beginning of a leadership journey. And there's where a lot of shops don't realize it. I did a class at Ratchet Wrench last year, and it was really they wanted like specs on the program as far as results, what's happened, and I went into it builds leaders, and then I got then I even said to the room, I'm like, all right, am I surprising any of you here that apprenticeship programs build leaders? And they're like, no. I said, you're only thinking of one side. You're only thinking of the apprentice, the mentor, the first real training for a lot of them in leadership is being a mentor. That's what leaders do. Leaders influence, and we do that through mentorship, guiding, helping, growing, teaching. Those are how we positively, in a positive way, influence people. And some of the beginnings of their leadership is through that mentorship piece and that one-on-one connection. What a great way to learn how to help and grow people. Doing it's your own case study, it's your own test bed, and it's you, and it's done in such a way that it's safe. You're learning how to lead in a safe environment, just like they're learning how to fix cars and be a technician in a safe environment. You're taking chances both ways. That's the thing, and that's where we went sideways, and of course we learned is you still have to take chances on people, control the risk to the best of your ability. But in the end of the day, I tell people, if we mess up, we employ humans. Don't judge us on our mistakes, judge us on what we do about it. And of course we fix whatever, we would fix anything, but it's very, very rare. And I'd say that's for most of the shops. It's rare, but be willing to take the risk. And if you do that, I think people step up to the challenge.
One of the common things I hear a lot from folks that went from being a technician to a manager is that there wasn't a whole lot of intermediate, right? You went from being a good technician or a technician in general to being thrown to the wolves in the office side. And even if somebody's going to be a service writer, service advisor, that they feel like, well, about cars, here you go. We'll chuck you into the deep end and hope you learn how to swim. I genuinely enjoy what you just said there about using that mentorship piece as kind of a transition to something more down the road, because that then does dip their foot in the pool, and it allows them to understand that leadership's not easy. I think a lot of times from a technician standpoint, and I know I was this way when I was younger, you're out there working on a car and you see the service manager just behind the computer and on the phone, and you're like, not doing anything. Like that's easy. And then when you get into that role, you're like, this is really, really hard. I wish somebody would have prepared me for this. And so I think that's your that first step into leadership. I just really enjoyed your viewpoint on that, because it is so helpful if somebody views it through that lens, and that this is your introduction. This is your introduction to leadership. This is introduction to maybe getting you to go to that conference and go to a leadership class, because you've started to understand that this is not easy stuff. People are not easy. And I just, as you said that, a light bulb went on for me, and I'm like, you were absolutely right.
And we learned that. We didn't know it. We figured that out as we were going through the programs, making our mistakes, learning. It's like everything else. We learned as we went through it. Now, of course, I try to help people and tell them, is like, this is the benefit. But there are risks, but it's no different than starting a business or whatever you're doing. There's always risk.
Have you ever had anybody go into the mentorship piece and to be a mentor, and they just come back to you and say, this ain't for me? Like, I just want to go back to working on cars.
As far, okay. You mean as being a mentor?
They're normally a pretty good fit. You pretty much know. Yeah,
they are, but I'll expand on that a little bit, because I think it merits is, I think you got to vet. And then part of that too is testing the waters and trying it out. As far as mentorship, usually it's for a set time, and sometimes people don't jive and you might have to switch things up. where these two people don't communicate well. So you got to find someone else that has a different mannerism or something that helps them. But even in leadership itself, let's just say they wanted to go and run a store, and that's where we test and we try to be proactive to where, all right, if you want to run a store, well then all right, we have someone going on vacation next week. We've taught you a lot of these things. Why don't you go over to that store and run it for the week with assistance, with somebody, not necessarily the store lead, because they're going to take over a lot of it because it's their store, but maybe an area lead or something works with them and they get to experience it. I got humbled, and humbled's the word. Jose humbled me greatly 25-ish years ago. I was a, technician running my yap. He was a service advisor at the store, and I'm just like, yap. No, this didn't sell. This ain't right. That ain't right. Well, I think I just exceeded his limit of taking it. And he just said, that's fine. Next week, I'm going to pay you to be at the counter. You're going to sit there, and Shannon, Lee's daughter, actually taught me how to be a service advisor. And I'm like, oh, no. He says, oh, yes. He put me at that counter and made me do it. Humbled me quite a bit. I did not want any parts of that. And I tell you what, I learned a better respect for that job. And it started the building process of me learning, dealing with customers, people, journey towards leadership. It helped me a lot, but yeah, it also humbled me a little bit too.
I actually really enjoy that as part of the onboarding process of just having somebody, when you bring them in. I know everybody's in a rush to get a good experienced technician into production as soon as possible, turning hours as soon as possible. I like to take a step back right there and have them spend a day with the service manager, have them spend a day with the service writer, and really just try to get some perspective of what they do each day. And that's not the grand scale, because they're still not the ones taking the call. They're still not the ones kind of with the pressure of being on the phone and having 4 people walk in at the same time and all the craziness that happens as a result of that. But if it at least gives them a little perspective, I think it gives them a different appreciation for that job in a way where, when we don't have them behind the counter ever, it's hard for them to see how challenging that job is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that's where, thankfully, we do a lot of goal-based, our review process. And we ask, like, what is your 1, 3, and 5-year goals professionally? And if you want to share personally, I would love it. If you want to buy a house, I want to know. We have a lot of 20-year-olds that own houses, a lot of 30-year-olds that own houses.
That's cool.
I want to know, because my connections in the community. I'm going to help you with a realtor. I'm going to help you with a banker. I'm going to set you up with people that I trust. Now, I'm not going to pay for it for you, but I will roll through some red tape that you have no idea. And you may get I've seen some that have gotten a loan officer, and they're getting them in a loan. I'm like, why are you in this type of loan? This is terrible. And they don't know. Especially not so much today, but there was a time. But yeah, we try it. Like, if you're trying to do something, let me help you. Because if you're more successful in whatever part of your life, you're probably going to be more successful with us as well. It's that rising tides rise all ships. I think everything we've talked about does that. And if we're able to do that, we're all better off for it.
As far as the nuts and bolts of the apprenticeship program itself, can you talk me through that? Is it credential based? Is it how do you judge when you're kind of graduating people through your tiers of the apprenticeship?
Okay, 2 programs, and they're both so important. But so youth, high school. That's how I always label it as high school. Extremely simple. We're normally dealing with minors, so the school system kind of dictates most of what that program is. Which really, they get out of school early, so we see them. It's part of their class credit, so we see them for most of the day. They have a mentor, and we have a goal list of what they're going to learn. So they know up front, and this is, even if you can't do anything else, have a list of what people are going to learn. It makes a difference in how engaged they are with you. But we have that, and actually we have set raises. If you can be proficient, not an expert, at doing a digital inspection, You do your safety training. You understand and can do an oil change. You know how to do a fluid exchange. Just be, 80%, 90% of the time, you can do it without help. Instant raises. You know how to get the raise right from the beginning. That's been really successful because if they come to us wanting a raise, we go, well, which one of these 8 things have you mastered or become proficient at? Sorry. And most of the time they'll have that. If not, they'll be like, I said, well, let's work on that. Instead of me just giving you more money, let's help you get better to make you more valuable. That's been good, and that's been really good. But really, that's a time-based. When they graduate high school, that program ends. But they're graded for it. But it's really more of are they a good fit? That's the vetting process for our registered program. Our registered program after high school, because you can be any age. You can be 18 or 65, whatever you want to be. If you want to do this, you can. But it predominantly is 18 to 25. That's the predominant area. It is time-based. That's what we picked. You can go competency. There are many ways to peel the onion on this thing. For us, it was 3 years because I went to the local community college that has an amazing program, and looked at their master certification to get the 12 classes in, because they're 4 to 5 credit hour classes. It was 3 years. So we created a 3-year program. They do two in the spring, 2 in the fall, class-wise. They end up with 54, 55 credits. College credits. I insist they are for credit. Never know where your journey will take you, and you may go back like I did myself. I did an automotive degree and went back for a business, and then got a bachelor's in business. Because of that, I built it off of that, and I want them to have the same opportunity. But really, it's time-based. But as they take the class, they're doing the work here. That 3 years seems to be magical for us because they come out of it very skilled and really prepared. Now they still have help, but they're ready to stand on their own for the most part. And really the progression. Year 1 is more infancy. I want to say year 2 is they're really getting their feet under them. They're getting productive. And year 3 is they're doing great things. They really are. And that's worked for us. But now you can pick what you want, what works for you. Like I know Napa has a good program out there, and it varies, depends on it's competency based. But let's say it's 2 years. You pick and choose whatever program works for you. I tell people, whatever it is, do something. At least have a goal list. If you have a goal list, you're starting something good.
What is your expectation when they come out of the registered apprenticeship, like that first year?
That's a great question. I don't know if I've been asked.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
No. What makes me think is I just like in leadership and in apprenticeship, everyone has their own journey at their own speed. Once they graduate, I've never had anyone not be able to perform in an acceptable area level. I need to understand, our team needs to understand where they're at and how to help them get better if they're not as far along as they need to be. But for most of the time, the way the program works and the school, we work with the school system, the teachers help us, we help them get them to where they need to be. And they've been working on cars the whole time. They kind of fit right in. Really, it just comes down to, it's attitude. And probably one of the biggest challenges at the end of year 3, they've graduated the program, and sometimes they think they know a little more than they've been experienced to. And I tell them, I said, you have it's been very successful in a really great program. You have a lot of knowledge. You've learned a lot through book, hands-on, but now you need to learn. Now you need to get experience. And that takes time. No one can teach how tight a bolt is until you've broken a few of them. You have to go through that process. I can give you the fundamentals. You can take advantage of that and learn and have all of the theory and understand how to work on things, but you've got to get the experience to truly master your craft. And part of that, each one's a little different. Really, it's on us to know where they're at in that journey. Of course, it's on them to apply themselves and keep learning. But really is, what do I expect? I expect them to keep learning and keep trying. And if they're doing that, then they're in good shape. But they've all come out at acceptable levels. But it's been from here to here. And more to the top side. That's where that structured program is something special about it that works. And it's amazing what people will do when they know you're investing in them.
Something I've had to change my tune on over the years was that I was pretty adamant that one thing that needed to be changed in our industry was that we had this mentality as technicians that I learned the hard way, so you need to learn the hard way. And I was frustrated that at that, especially as a young technician. But then as the years have gone by, one thing I do think there's an element to you do have to go through this stuff. You have to gain that experience, and you're going to get your butt kicked. I know, looking back to one of the very first jobs I did as a true technician was, used a air ratchet on a transmission pan bolt and snapped it like immediately, right? And so then you're just so frustrated, and it's one of those things where to this day I've never done that again, right? But it was one of those where I had to learn. And so while I think there's maybe a different way we could communicate that rather than the old school, I learned the hard way, you need to learn the hard way. It's like being able to talk a young person through the fact that you're going to have to get experience doing this stuff. And you can read about it in a book all you want, but until you apply it, you're not going to break that bolt. You're not going to screw up and have that lesson that is just a part of learning. So, I've had to kind of walk back on that a little bit over the years, where I was frustrated with our industry's, I think, comfort level with just saying, I learned the hard way, so you need to kind of look at it through a different lens and say, you know what, you kind of do. You kind of have to go through some of those challenges in order to become a really, really good technician.
I'm going to have to agree with you. But I think it's important for the why.
Yeah.
It's not a punishment. The stories and lessons we've learned are not our highest successes. I got that engine replaced in half the time I called for it. We don't normally remember that. We remember the one that took us twice as long because we forgot. I can tell you right now, I put a used engine in one time and forgot to put the flex plate. It wasn't on there. I put the whole thing in and then I went under and there's no flex plate. It's the fastest engine I ever took back out and put in. I will tell you that much. But you don't forget your mistakes. Yeah. They hang with you, and that's building blocks for being better. It's the same analogy as people don't respect free. Free has no value. You charge for something, they then appreciate what you're doing. It's like if I come to help you, Jay, and it's free, you're like, okay, it's nice. If I charge you some time, you'll find more value in it. And I think it's the same with just the pain level of learning. But don't do it out of malice, and not because you got beat up. Do it for their own growth, because we have to see all cycles of life, and that's something, with the newest generation. I'm seeing some differences since COVID, and risk averse, taking chances. They've been through some things, and now they don't want to. And I'm like, they're not willing to take as many chances and all. And I'm like, we got to take chances to grow and learn. And that's another challenge we have. And it's always going to be something, that's just it won't be boring. There's always something new coming along, but you got good foundations, good building blocks. People will grow and we will all be successful.
That's great. And I really like that you said it's not punishment. Going through the experience is not punishment. And I think that's the way it was phrased to a lot of us when we were young in the industry, is that it is punishment. You kind of got to go through that in order, and you really do. It's just how we deliver that message and how we, like you said, deliver that why, because I do think that's important. As we wrap up our podcast, we have 3 kind of quick hitting fun questions for you that are just kind of more along the lines of the get to know you stuff. So what was your first car?
First car, 1977 Chevy Monza with a V8 in it. That's how I learned how to break stuff really good.
That would have been a fun one.
It was fun. It was. It started the spark, which when I not to side rail your 3 questions here, but That's where they say, why do people not want to be technicians? I said, well, when I grew up, you looked at a high school parking lot, you saw Mustangs, Camaros, a Monza. We could work on our own cars. Now you're seeing BMWs, Lexus, Teslas. They can't work on those things. How do you fall in love with an industry that you can't try? That's where the school systems are so important. That's why shops opening their doors to young individuals is so important. You want people in the industry, open your doors because they can't do it on their own.
Boy, that is great. What is your favorite type of food?
Favorite food? Too much.
Hey.
You know, I love sushi. That is one of my top ones. I am a meat and potatoes guy too. I'm not so much on the sweets, so proteins. But yeah, I love probably sushi is probably one of my favorites.
Love it. It took me a while, but I was on the sushi train probably 15 years ago because a friend talked me into it, and to this day love sushi. Last one. More routine based. Do you have a specific time that you wake up in the morning?
Yeah, when I ache. No, I would say usually around 5:30, 5:30, going on 6 o'clock. Alarms set or not, I'll wake up to it.
Just naturally.
Yeah, pretty natural, pretty steady. And usually once I'm awake, once the mind starts, I'm done. I mean, I literally, it's like if I just keep my eyes shut, I might be able to fall back asleep. But if my eyes open, it just turns on and that's it. I'm done. I got to get up.
That's very frustrating. Like on a Sunday morning when you say, "Hey, I'm going to sleep in today," and then your mind starts going. And I think most people in business understand that your mind really never probably completely disengages from business. And so if you get up and you start thinking about something, or like in my mind, I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I forgot to respond to that email at 3 o'clock on a Sunday morning or something." So you get up and
I've
try to
learned,
get to it.
and I have not mastered this, but it has helped me. You know, like when I go to bed and I know like I got some big things to do the next day that are critical. You know, and we're not talking just regular basic stuff, but like you got to have a heart to heart with somebody that's really important that could go sideways on you or something. I will talk myself out of thinking about that. I'll tell myself to knock it off, stop thinking about it. And I've got decent about it to where I can fall asleep pretty quickly, because if I let it, it'll just fester. And then sometimes even if I wake up in the middle of the night, which thankfully don't happen often, but yeah, but once the morning comes, it's on. It's good to go.
I think I have that same thing with me. Once the brain starts going, it's there's no stopping it. But
Yeah.
Dwayne, I have to say, what an absolute pleasure this has been. I'm so happy that you took the time to join us on the podcast, and just an absolute pleasure talking to you as always.
Yep. We've connected every time we see each other. It's like we haven't missed a day. You know, it's pretty cool.
It is. Well, best of luck here in 2026, and hope to have you back on sometime in the future.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Yep.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you like this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team. WrenchWay is dedicated to promoting and improving careers in the automotive, diesel, and collision industries. In partnership with ASE, we run the ASE Connects community, which empowers shops and dealerships with reliable data, school connections, and industry insights while helping grow the future technician workforce. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.